Have you been waking up at 3 a.m. without an alarm, for no apparent reason, as if an invisible force were calling you in the dark? What if I told you that this is no coincidence? That this awakening in the middle of the night could be a call straight from heaven, and that you are being silently trained for a mission that goes far beyond your comprehension? The truth is that the chosen ones do not have ordinary hours. They are summoned when the world sleeps and heaven is at war. Waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. may seem like a nuisance, but for those with a heightened spiritual sensitivity, this time of day holds codes, revelations, instructions. And no, this is not cheap mysticism. It is a profound spiritual reality. Kierkegaard, the Christian thinker who delved into anguish as a path to radical faith, said that God speaks in silence, and that pain can be the password to the call. If this is happening to you, maybe it's time to stop asking yourself, why me? And start asking yourself, what for me? Because those who awaken in the hour of darkness are usually being summoned to a divine vigil, an invisible mission. Maybe you are one of these sentinels. Maybe your spirit has already been enlisted in the army of prayer warriors. And all of this, without you even being aware of it. Before we dive into this universe of self-knowledge, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, like it, and activate notifications. This way, you can ensure that you are always connected to content that inspires and transforms. Throughout this video, you will understand why your sleep has been interrupted in the early hours of the morning, what this reveals about your spiritual identity, and how to transform this discomfort into divine authority. Get ready. This content is not just informative. It is a call to action. Waking up in the early hours of the morning, especially between 3 and 4 in the morning, is not a random coincidence of the body. It is a spiritual summons. It is as if heaven is whispering your name while the world still sleeps. Kierkegaard said that God acts in the deepest silence of existence. And it is in this silence that he calls those who have been set apart to watch, the chosen ones, the invisible sentinels who keep the flame burning when all seems dark. Being awakened like this, without logical explanation, carries a weight of responsibility. It is not about ordinary insomnia. It is about sharp spiritual intuition. Those who wake up at these times often feel something in their chest, an urgency, an uneasiness, a restlessness. This spiritual anguish, as Kierkegaard describes it, is the seed of true faith. God does not awaken those who are off duty in the kingdom. He awakens warriors in training. It is in this quiet hour, when darkness reigns outside, that the light begins to shine within. Many do not even realize it, but they are being trained in the dark for missions of light. To wake up like this is to be positioned as an intercessor, a secret prayer warrior, someone who prays while others sleep, who listens when the heavens are quietest. The spiritual battle takes place behind the scenes, and the chosen ones operate in the unseen. Have you ever stopped to think about how many decisions were avoided, how many dangers were averted, how many lives were saved, because someone obeyed the call and prayed in the early morning? This is the invisible mission that few understand. That is why many of those who experience this awakening feel misunderstood. But the truth is, you were not made to fit in, you were made to rise up. Spiritual dawn is a space of intimacy with God. There are no distractions. There is no noise. Just you, your sacred anguish, and the presence of the one who summons the unlikely. This vigil is not about seeing, but about feeling. It is not about understanding, but about obeying. The closed eyes of the world are the signal for your spiritual eyes to open. And if God has been waking you up, perhaps it is because you have more authority than you imagine. Begin to view this awakening as a privilege, not a nuisance. Keep a notebook handy. Write down insights, feelings, prayers. This is the beginning of a silent but powerful spiritual training. Heaven has strategies, and he is raising up sentinels who can discern the unseen. Are you one of them? Awakening between 3 and 4 in the morning is like being summoned to an invisible arena. What seems like a break in sleep is actually the sound of a spiritual alarm that only warriors can hear. Kierkegaard said that true faith requires anguish. And it is in this silent anguish, in this nocturnal discomfort, that God begins to forge the chosen ones, not with comfort, but with purpose. This time is known in many spiritual circles as the hour of darkness. And not by chance. It is during this period that spiritual forces move intensely, both in the fields of light and darkness. Those who awaken during this period are not just awake, they are being activated. It is as if the spirit reacts before the mind even understands. Waking up in the early hours of the morning is like being in a war position, even if you haven't realized it. Radical faith, so often spoken of by Kierkegaard, is exactly this, an active trust in the invisible, even when the natural screams otherwise. When you pray at dawn, you are not just praying. You are confronting spiritual structures, undoing traps, rewriting destinies. That is why the enemy tries to steal your constancy, because he knows the power that exists in a warrior of constant prayer. Many of those who experience this nocturnal calling think they are fighting alone, but they are not. You are part of a silent army spread throughout the world. People who have never seen each other, but who share the same spiritual clock. They are the spiritual sentinels who, even in silence, keep the doors open so that heaven's strategy can be fulfilled. Invisible intercessors, fighters of the dawn. If this has happened to you, don't fight it. Respond. Take a moment, however short, to stand or kneel. Start with 5 minutes. Just listen. Just say, "Lord, I am here." Obedience is worth more than eloquence. God is not looking for pretty speeches in the wee hours of the morning. He is looking for willing hearts. And the heart of a warrior is forged in the silence of obedience. So, the next time you wake up at this time, take a deep breath. Get up. What seems like just a physical discomfort may actually be the beginning of a spiritual training. You are being prepared to resist, to intercede, to transform. And the most beautiful thing is that this invisible struggle bears eternal fruits. There is a secret that few realize. Dawn is not only a time of war, it is also a spiritual sanctuary. For the chosen, it becomes a silent altar where the sky whispers the invisible. It is in this interval between the sleep of the world and the movement of the spirit that God reveals secret maps, strategies that come not by logic, but by revelation. Kierkegaard called this the divine paradox, when the eternal hides within the ordinary. Have you ever woken up with an idea that didn't seem like it was yours? A clear intuition, a specific direction, a name that came out of nowhere? This can be more than inspiration. It can be a mission being delivered. The chosen ones are not guided by human goals alone, but by directions that are born in the Spirit. And these directions are often delivered in the divine wake of dawn. It is on this invisible altar that heaven's strategies are born. What you experience today may be shaped by the prayers you say in the silence of the night. God entrusts revelations to those who are willing to listen when no one else is paying attention. That is why many of the great spiritual movements began in the dark, alone, in simple rooms, but with open hearts. The altar of dawn does not demand gold, it demands surrender. Write down what you receive. Keep a special notebook by your bed. Don't underestimate anything. Small impressions can be great directions. Great decisions, impactful ideas, healing words, and even future deliverances can be born from these secret encounters. It's as if God were saying, "While the world sleeps, I reveal." This is the reward of the watchful, of the faithful sentinels. And it is interesting to note that, even without witnesses, there is a spiritual record being written. The early mornings of prayer do not go unnoticed in heaven. They are like invisible letters that seal eternal pacts. Kierkegaard spoke of the importance of the individual before God, and it is precisely in this intimate space that the chosen one understands the weight and honor of the mission he carries. The early morning, then, stops being just a break in the day. It becomes a sacred field, an altar where God speaks without a microphone, and where the chosen ones listen without needing to make noise. If you have been experiencing this, know this: you are not being disturbed, you are being trusted. Great prayer warriors are not forged in the spotlight, but in the silence of the early morning. The faith of the chosen ones is born behind the scenes of the invisible, where no one applauds, no one comments, no one sees. Kierkegaard said that true Christians are molded in solitude before leading any crowd. And this is more than beautiful, it is real. Spiritual authority cannot be bought, it cannot be copied, it is conquered in secret. While the world seeks platforms, the chosen ones seek depth. They understand that their spiritual strength comes from how much they can hold on when everything seems to be falling apart. And it is in the early hours of the morning, when even the air seems heavier, that this faith is honed. Spiritual anguish is not a flaw. It is a reminder that you have been set apart for something greater. And this separation hurts, but it also frees. It is in this sacred silence that God tests and refines his warriors. It is not about noise, it is about communion. It is not about showing off, it is about obedience. Silence is the fertile soil where deep faith grows. While many complain about the absence of signs, the chosen ones learn to recognize God in the sound of nothingness, in the pause of the soul, in the waiting that forms character. It is there that intimacy transforms into authority. Anyone who has been called by God in the dark knows. There is something supernatural in simply continuing. In continuing even without answers. In getting up even without desire. Because each dawn won in secret is a battle won in the invisible. And the more you persevere in this solitary process, the more you are aligned with the heavens. It is as if God were saying, before using you in public, I need to possess you in private. So don't undervalue your moments of silence with God. They are not empty moments. They are spaces of construction. Those who pray alone today will guide many tomorrow. Those who listen to God in the dark will have words for multitudes. And this is not motivational speech. It is spiritual foundation. The greatest names in the faith have gone through this process, including you, even if you haven't realized it yet. The journey of real faith begins where the spotlights don't reach. And it is in this quiet terrain that your spiritual authority begins to take shape. Because when heaven decides to entrust something great to someone, it first trains them in anonymity. When you wake up repeatedly at the same time, especially between 3 and 4 a.m., it's a sign that something is being aligned within you. This isn't just biology or coincidence. It's a kind of divine code. Kierkegaard would call it the awakening of the soul, that moment when consciousness becomes sensitive to the eternal call. God is tuning your spirit like an instrument, and this tuning only happens in the silence of the early morning. This pattern is no accident. It reveals that your inner frequency is beginning to align with something greater, something that you don't yet fully understand, but that you feel strongly about. Waking up at the same time every day is like receiving a spiritual password. It's as if heaven is saying, now is your time. And the more you resist this call, the more intense the feeling of spiritual distress can become. Many try to silence this internal alarm clock with distractions, scrolling through their cell phones, trying to go back to sleep, ignoring the disturbance. But the chosen ones, when they wake up, understand that this moment is different. It is intimate. It is necessary. It is a rare opportunity to access revelations, restore the soul, and hear the voice of God at night, more clearly than the day could offer. The dawn is not just a time. It is a spiritual frequency. Start noticing patterns. Is there an emotion that always comes to you at this time? A recurring thought? A name? A sense of urgency? Write it down. Observe it. The Spirit speaks through symbols, through repetitions, through small details that, when added together, reveal a grand strategy. This is where deep spirituality begins to form, when you stop looking for external signs and start deciphering the internal ones. This process of spiritual tuning is also a form of healing. God is aligning your perceptions, expanding your sensitivity, adjusting your inner hearing. The chosen ones are trained to perceive what no one else sees, to feel what no one else names, to react when no one else perceives the danger or opportunity. And this begins when you pay attention to what seems small, the nighttime awakening. So instead of resisting this call, embrace it. Say in a low voice, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And then listen, because sometimes a single sentence received in this waking state can change everything. Waking up in the middle of the night is not a punishment. It is a preparation. Have you ever stopped to think that your silent prayer, said in the darkness of your room, could be changing the story of someone you don't even know? It may seem like an exaggeration, but it's not. Job interceded for his children in the early hours of the morning. He didn't wait for scandals, tragedies, or crises to pray. He watched before evil manifested itself. This is the power of those who take on spiritual vigilance, to protect, anticipate, and transform. Kierkegaard taught that the individual, alone before God, carries more spiritual weight than 1,000 empty speeches. And this is especially evident in the wee hours of the morning. Prayer warriors do not seek recognition. They seek eternal results. They know that while they are there, on their knees, they may be preventing suicides, calming anxious minds, breaking cycles of family pain. All this without an audience. The chosen one who answers this nightly call is, in fact, writing new spiritual chapters for entire generations. Each prayer is an invisible seed that can blossom into the future of their children, grandchildren, their community, or even nations. Sounds far-fetched? Then think of how many historical leaders were influenced by the silent faith of someone who was never publicly acknowledged. You may not have titles, positions, or status, but if you have radical faith and a watchful heart, you have more spiritual authority than many who claim to be great. Because true transformation begins in the unseen. The divine purpose resting upon your life is not just individual, it is collective. Heaven seeks intercessors, not influencers. Sentinels, not celebrities. Warriors on their knees, not stage generals. The most impressive thing is that many of the fruits of this intercession will not even be seen in this life. But this is not a problem for those who have the mind of the kingdom. The chosen ones know that their prayers are harvested at the right time, and that what begins with silent faith ends in an abundant harvest. The world may not see it, but heaven signs each intercession made with sincerity. And this signature transforms destinies. So keep going, even if you don't see an immediate response, even if it seems in vain, because dawn is the soil where you plant what will flourish in God's time. There is a quiet power in writing, and the chosen ones who understand this don't just pray, they document it. Kierkegaard, for example, kept a detailed spiritual journal in which he wrote down reflections, dilemmas, insights, and profound questions to God. He understood that paper can also be an altar. When you write down what you receive in the early morning, you are, in effect, giving form to the unseen. Recording the revelations received during spiritual vigil is an act of maturity, not because you're going to post or share, but because you need to remember. The enemy does not just steal faith, he tries to erase directions. When you do not write down what heaven delivers, time and fatigue can distort or erase what should become your compass. A notebook by your bed can be the weapon that is missing in your spiritual routine. Furthermore, writing things down is also a sign of expectation. It shows that you believe God will speak and that you are ready to receive. This active stance is rare. Most people listen with distracted hearts. The chosen ones listen with prepared hearts. They know that what is whispered in the middle of the night may be the answer to a dilemma that has not yet arrived. They are instructions for future battles, delicate decisions, inner healing. And what's more, when you record, you train your discernment. When you review what you wrote days later, you notice patterns. You connect the dots. You understand directions. Intercession stops being just emotional and becomes strategic. This is spiritual wisdom. Many people go around in circles because they don't pay attention to what heaven has already revealed in previous vigils. The chosen one's notebook then becomes almost a prophetic map of themselves. This simple habit also generates personal mastery. It helps with consistency, strengthens spiritual memory, and prevents powerful moments from being lost in the rush of the next day. After all, how many times have you woken up shocked by something that seemed clear, but disappeared before you even had your coffee? Recording is protecting the revelation. It is treating it like a living seed, ready to bear fruit at the right time. It doesn't matter if your notes seem confusing or simple. Just start. Write without filter, without judgment. Over time, this exercise will become a sacred practice, and you will realize that the chosen ones who write don't just remember, they govern with wisdom. Because those who heed the voice of God in the morning will be ready to make authoritative decisions in the light of day. Persevering in spiritual vigilance is not for everyone. It is for those who understand that constancy in the invisible is more powerful than any visible performance. Many begin by waking up, praying, writing down, but few maintain this routine when answers take time or the body feels heavy. Kierkegaard said that authentic faith has a price, incomprehension. And remaining firm in the early hours of the morning is paying this price every day. The greatest ministers, prophets, and intercessors began alone, in the dark, in anonymity. They did not expect applause or validation. They knew they were being trained by God in silence. The early morning was their battlefield and also their school. It is in this secret place that the anointing of the chosen is strengthened. not by fine words, but by spiritual endurance forged in daily effort. This perseverance generates rare spiritual authority, because those who keep watch even without answers prove to heaven that they can be trusted. And God entrusts spiritual weight to those who do not give up halfway. A chosen one who keeps watch even when tired, even without signs, carries a strength that the enemy cannot imitate. Because this strength does not come from the flesh, it comes from the spirit aligned with heaven. That is why dawn also separates the curious from the committed, those who feel goosebumps from those who hold the altar, those who cry once from those who intercede for years. There is nothing more precious to God than someone who says, "Here I am," every day, even when silence seems the only answer. This is the kind of faith that shakes structures, that changes atmospheres, that plants legacies. If you have been awake, watching, taking notes, persevering, keep going. You may not see anything right now, but the spiritual world is moving. Your constancy is opening paths that you have not yet known. There is an anointing being poured out on those who do not give up, on those who remain faithful even though they do not fully understand. And this anointing cannot be bought or replicated. Do not underestimate the strength of a steadfast heart. Do not underestimate the power of a dawn overcome. The authority that comes from perseverance is different. It does not depend on a stage, visibility, or likes. It moves heaven and earth at the right time. And if God has awakened you and you have responded, know that you are already among the chosen ones who are being raised as invisible pillars of a kingdom that will never be shaken. If you've come this far, something inside you probably confirmed every word. Maybe because your spirit already knew, even before your mind understood, that these awakenings in the middle of the night are not random. They are codes from heaven. God is calling you to a deeper level of intimacy, authority, and mission. And this calling requires courage, constancy, and a faith that is nourished in silence. Waking up at dawn may seem like a nuisance, but what if it is an invitation? An invitation to divine vigil, to secret revelation, to invisible combat? What if it is God's way of telling you, "You are my chosen one"? Perhaps everything you are experiencing is a great process of preparation for something that goes beyond you, something that will touch generations, something that begins in the dark and shines forever. Now, I want to ask you some questions, but not to be answered in a hurry, but rather to resonate within you. What has God been trying to show you in the silence? What revelations have you ignored because you thought they were just dreams or random ideas? How long will you resist this call that wakes you up night after night? If this message touched your spirit, don't be silent. Comment here. Do you feel that God wakes you up in the middle of the night with a purpose that you don't yet fully understand? Your testimony may be exactly what another chosen one needs to recognize their own calling. And of course, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like. This helps us to continue producing profound content that touches lives like yours. And remember, the chosen ones walk in silence, but they leave trails of light wherever they go.